Former Celtics star returning to the NBA? Not so fast. The rumors were building. Many Boston Celtics fans were getting excited about the idea of Lonnie Walker IV returning to the NBA. After all, a player with his experience and quality could add a lot of value to a team looking for more depth in the playoffs. But that hope didn't last long. Walker made his choice. He will continue playing in Europe with BC Žalgiris in Lithuania. But was it really his choice to stay in Europe? Or did the NBA decide to move on without him? With the trade deadline closed and the All-Star game in the UAHs rearview, teams are making their final adjustments for the season's home stretch. The Boston Celtics, for example, made moves behind the scenes, signing Torrey Craig to a guaranteed contract, bolstering their defensive rotation and adding more experience for the playoffs. Even after that signing, however, the team still has an open roster spot. That's where Lonnie Walker IV's name comes into play. The 26-year-old shooting guard trained with the Celtics in the preseason and left a strong impression. Many fans saw the potential for him to earn a contract and become part of the rotation. But before the regular season even started, Walker chose to sign with Žalgiris, a decision that surprised many. And the most interesting part? His contract included a clause allowing him to leave for the NBA until February 18th. In other words, a return was possible if an NBA team showed interest. But the deadline passed and nothing happened. No NBA team, including the Celtics, made an official move. According to NBA insider Mark Stein, Walker will finish the season in Europe. So here's the big question. Does the NBA still see Lonnie Walker IV as a relevant player? Walker's situation is, at the very least, intriguing. He was once an important piece for competitive NBA teams. In 2023, playing for the Los Angeles Lakers, he had big playoff moments and helped the team reach the Western Conference Finals. Later, with the Brooklyn Nets, he didn't have the same impact but still posted solid numbers, averaging 9.7 points per game with 42.3% shooting from the field and 38.4% from three. Now in Europe, Walker is trying to rebuild his reputation, playing for Žalgiris. He's averaging 13.6 points per game in 22 minutes in the EuroLeague. The numbers are good, and he clearly still has the talent to play at a high level. So why didn't he get a serious offer from the NBA? Maybe the answer lies in his playing style. Walker is an explosive scorer, but he never established himself as a reliable defender. He's not a specialist in anything. He's not an elite defender, not a great playmaker, and despite his solid shooting, he doesn't stand out enough in one specific area to be a must-have for an NBA team. In other words, he's one of those players stuck in the NBA's gray area. Good enough to shine in specific moments, but not consistent enough to secure a spot on a title-contending roster. And what about the Celtics? Did they ever really want him back? Or did they simply evaluate their options and decide Walker wasn't the right fit? With Walker out of the picture, the big question now is what the Celtics will do with their final roster spot. There are plenty of options. The Celtics could promote one of their young players, like Drew Peterson or J.D. Davison, betting on youth and long-term development. But for a team fighting for back-to-back NBA championships, that doesn't seem like the most logical move. Another possibility is signing a veteran who brings experience and reliability for the playoffs. Players like Terrence Ross, Will Barton, or even John Wall are still available. None of them are game changers, but they could strategically fill that last roster spot. If the Celtics decide not to sign anyone, that would send a clear message. They fully trust their current roster and don't see the need for any changes. Here's the real question. Does Lonnie Walker IV still have a place in the NBA, or has the league already moved on? Looking at the NBA's recent history, there are plenty of talented players who ended up being left out simply because no team made them a priority. Players like Isaiah Thomas, Lance Stevenson, and DeMarcus Cousins are all examples of guys who, despite their talent, struggled to find a permanent spot in the league in recent years. Is Walker heading down the same path? He still has the age, athleticism, and skill to play in the NBA. But the truth is, if he really wanted to come back, he probably would have already. If Jayson Tatum could choose the sixth man of the year, the decision would be easy. Payton Pritchard deserves it. No debate. And he doesn't just think so. He made it crystal clear after the show Pritchard put on in the Boston Celtics' victory over the Philadelphia 76ers. The real question now is, will the NBA see what Tatum and every Celtics fan already know? Last Thursday, Pritchard came off the bench and completely dismantled the 76ers' defense with a breathtaking performance. It was a shooting masterclass that caught Philadelphia completely off guard. In just 31 minutes, he dropped 28 points, hitting 10 of 18 shots and dishing out 4 assists. The most impressive part? 8 three-pointers, and this wasn't a fluke. It was the 3rd time in his career he reached that mark. Now stop and think. How many bench players can come into a game and completely change its course? How many can dictate the tempo, ignite the crowd, and walk away as the night's biggest star? That's the impact of Payton Pritchard. Tatum's bold statement after the game. Tatum spoke to TNT's Ali LaForce and didn't hold back on the praise for his teammate. He's unbelievable. What he does for this team every night, coming off the bench, is incredible. We still have a few weeks to go, but for me, he has to be the 6th man of the year. Now let's step beyond the excitement of the moment. If Tatum, one of the best players in the league and one of the Celtics' biggest leaders, is saying this with such conviction, shouldn't we take it more seriously? And he wasn't the only one who shined. Tatum delivered a well-rounded performance, recording a triple-double with 15 points, 11 rebounds, and 10 assists. Jaylen Brown contributed 20 points and 6 rebounds, while Al Horford, another strong 6th-man candidate, added 11 points and 4 rebounds. Derek White posted a double-double with 16 points and 10 rebounds, and Kristaps Porzingis chipped in with 17 points, knocking down 3 triples. What does this all mean? That in a team loaded with stars and high-impact players, Payton Pritchard is still managing to stand out and be a game-changer. Celtics are finding new ways to dominate. With this win, the Celtics extended their streak to 4 straight victories and now hold a 40-16 record on the season. Their grip on the Eastern Conference's top spot remains firm, and they continue to prove they're ready to defend their 2024 NBA title. But here's something that might be even scarier for their rivals. The Boston Celtics aren't just winning, they're finding new ways to dominate their opponents. And that's where the big question about Payton Pritchard comes in. At the start of the season, there was uncertainty about whether Boston's bench could maintain the tempo when the starters rested. That question has now been answered. Pritchard isn't just a luxury reserve. He's a game changer. He speeds up the offense, spaces the floor with his lethal shooting, and even contributes defensively. If opponents already had to worry about Tatum, Brown, and Porzingis, they now have to fear Payton Pritchard coming off the bench and turning the game upside down. Will the NBA voters recognize it? If it were up to Tatum and those who watch the Celtics closely, the 6th Man of the Year award would already have its rightful owner. But will the NBA voters see it the same way? Other candidates like DeAndre Hunter, Cavaliers, Malik Beasley, Pistons, and Naz Reid, Timberwolves, are strong contenders, but none of them have the same level of impact that Pritchard has on a team considered the title favorite. The numbers also back him up. In 55 games, he's averaging a career-best 14.1 points, 3.8 rebounds, 3.5 assists, and shooting 41.5% from 3. More importantly, he's delivering in big moments and high-stakes games, a crucial factor for the award. Historically, the NBA has been hesitant to reward bench players from star-studded teams. It's as if a 6th man can only win if he's the lone bright spot on a weaker roster. But does that logic even make sense? If the real criterion is impact, Payton Pritchard should be leading the race. But will the voters recognize it? Or will they fall into the usual trap of giving the award to someone putting up decent numbers on a mediocre team? If it were up to Tatum, the answer is already clear. What about you? Do you think Pritchard deserves the award? Or will the voters get it wrong again? Celtics got in the 76ers' heads. After their last defeat, the Philadelphia 76ers started the season with high expectations. After all, with Joel Embiid at his peak, the arrival of Paul George, and a roster full of talent, the team was projected to be among the top 3 in the Eastern Conference. But reality hit hard. A 20-point home loss to the Boston Celtics was just another chapter in a disappointing season. With a record of 20 wins and 35 losses, the 76ers are currently in 11th place in the East, not even in the play-in zone. Of course, injuries to Embiid and George have played a big role, but does that explain everything? What once looked like a championship-contending team is now at serious risk of missing the playoffs altogether. And the worst part, this latest loss to Boston left a bitter taste. It wasn't just about losing on the scoreboard. It was about being mentally and physically dominated. The Celtics showed they have complete control over the 76ers, something that could shake Philadelphia's confidence in the final stretch of the season. Right after the loss, the 76ers made a roster move, trying to spark some life into the team. On Friday, they announced the signing of forward Lonnie Walker IV, who had been playing overseas. Here's the interesting part. Walker was almost a Celtic this season. He signed a preseason contract with Boston in August, but was waived before the season began. Now, he gets another shot in the NBA, on a team that is desperately trying to turn things around. Sixers head coach Nick Nurse revealed that Philadelphia had been keeping an eye on Walker since last summer, but only now decided to pull the trigger on the signing. But will this move really change anything? Or is it just a desperate attempt to cover up deeper issues? Walker doesn't have a set debut date yet, but one thing stands out. Boston and Philadelphia face each other one more time this season, on March 6th in Boston. And if there's one thing we know about the NBA, it's that players love a revenge story. Walker could use this game as motivation to prove to the Celtics that they made a mistake letting him go. But will he have enough of an impact to make a difference? Meanwhile, Celtics fans are sitting back and enjoying the show. After humiliating the 76ers on the court, Boston may have shattered their rivals' confidence for good, leaving Philadelphia scrambling for answers. What do you think? Was this roster move a smart decision, or just proof that the 76ers are already throwing in the towel? Have the Celtics officially buried Philadelphia's playoff hopes?